Welcome to the first Baguette Bound Challenge. Today, US versus France food culture. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Raina.
I'm Jason.
And we are Baguette Bound. Today, we decided to do our first comparison about food culture in France, what we've noticed since we've been here versus the US. Mostly because if you've watched any of our videos, you've probably figured out that we like all the food things. Shopping for the food, cooking the food, eating the food, sharing the food with friends. It's really a big part of what we enjoy in life in the French culture. So there's been a lot of interesting things we've noticed since we've been here, and I want to point out we are just looking at this from an American perspective. So the things that jumped out at us, we're comparing them with the US, which is the only other place we've ever lived.
Yeah.
So bear that in mind as we go through.
10 items to go through.
Yep.
So let's go.
Okay. So to start with, I think one of the biggest things, literally as soon as we landed, that we realized is meal times here are very structured. In the US, pretty much, you might graze all day, you might eat lunch at 2 if you got busy. There's no real defined, absolute meal times. Very different here. Breakfast is only until 10:30. Very rarely do you see brunch. Then you've got lunch from 12 to 2. If you are not in a restaurant with your butt in a chair by 12:30, you're out of luck because they're all filled with people. And then dinner is 7 p.m. to we see French people sometimes eat as late as 9.
9. Yeah.
So 7 to 10 maybe. There is no snacking between there. No. And the exceptions of that are something called I always try to say the word for cake. What is it? Not la gâteau?
Le goûter.
La goûter in the afternoon.
The tasting.
Yeah, the tasting. It's for the kids in the afternoon after they get out of school when they're hungry. So around 3 or 4 o'clock, a little sweet treat for the kids. And adults might have, this is kind of weird, but a glass of orange juice or just a cafe. And then you have a little pause in the afternoons for Apéro, which we'll talk about in a minute. Everything is very structured, and the restaurants will actually close after 2 p.m. This is the big thing, I think. And they will not open again until 7. So if you don't get lunch, you're just gonna need to find a random patisserie that's open and buy yourself a baguette and some cheese. So different than the US, where you can get food all day long. Which one do we prefer, the US or France? Food all day, food structured?
We're gonna give this point to France. France wins this one. The mealtime structure is nice. It kind of gives structure to the day. We're all doing it together then.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
One for France.
Yeah, took a little while to get used to, but I think it's really a much healthier way to structure your day and how you interact with food.
Up next, eating with a fork and knife.
Oh my God, it's everything.
Okay, this seems a little ridiculous. You're wondering, well, who doesn't eat with a fork and knife? Do you eat every meal with a fork and knife?
Think
every
about
food?
this. Think about this for a minute.
Probably not. Extremely common here. Eat your fries with a fork and knife. Eat your burger. Cut up a burger. Cut up a pizza with a fork and knife. Really, almost anything that you can imagine. Using your hands for food is extremely uncommon. Extremely uncommon.
And when we have suggested it, when we have French people over and we've served biscuits or nachos, they are very uncomfortable.
They just stare at you. Really?
What are we, barbarians?
How would we do this exactly?
Yeah, it's very confusing. I think it's just part of their polite society, right?
Yes.
It's better manners to eat with your knife and fork.
Yeah.
So it's just simple as that. But I didn't realize how many things Americans eat with our hands. Tacos. I mean, the list goes on and on. Yeah. Chicken wings. There's so many things, and we don't think anything about it.
It seemed so normal before, and it feels a little out of place now.
I don't know. They still catch me eating my fries with my hands in restaurants.
It's okay.
Jason and Julian will be like,
We're not judging. Okay, so fork and knife at all times or fork and knife at some times? Who wins this one?
We had to give this to the U.S. I mean, come on. A burger is just better with your hands.
It's impossible to eat a burger with a fork and knife.
Yeah. Tacos, the same thing. So yeah, the U.S., point for the U.S. there. Next up it is very normal in France to have 3 courses at a meal. Juliana has 3 courses at school for her lunch. Yep. When you go out to lunch or dinner, it's just part of how they structure the meal. And I mean, in the US, I remember if you went out to eat and you got an appetizer, a entree, and a dessert, oh my God, it's like, what are you, at a state dinner? This is crazy. But that's really part of the culture of slowing down and enjoying your meal. And so here it's very normal to order 3 courses would be usually like they call it, the appetizer is an entree, the main course is a plat, and then dessert. Sometimes you'll see during lunch, it'll say like if you're in a hurry and you might just only get 2 courses.
2 of the 3.
2 of the 3.
Choose which 2 you want.
Right. Yeah. It's funny how quickly I've adapted, because now if we make dinner and we just have one thing, I'm like, oh, I feel like some part of my life is
Something's
missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, who wins this one?
France.
France. You're
France.
gonna go with France.
Yes.
You like the 3 courses.
I do. And I especially like it when you go to restaurants and it's usually priced really well and there's a few choices under each and you just make the 3 choices and then they just start bringing you food and you can just like relax and enjoy the whole experience.
It becomes an event. Yeah.
It becomes an event. And yeah, I didn't always feel that way when we would go out in the US.
Up next. So water in France. To get water at a restaurant, you have to ask for it. They're not going to bring you a glass of water. They're not going to bring you a bottle of water. You have to ask. They're more likely to offer sparkling water in France too. That's very common. At restaurants, at events, at people's houses, they'll offer sparkling water.
Yeah. Sometimes I think you think they're just trying to upcharge you at a restaurant by offering a bottle of sparkling water. But we have found, like he just said, It's so common. You go to people's houses for dinner and they will open a bottle, like a big bottle of Perrier, and that's just like what they serve.
Just normal.
Yeah, so it's just normal.
And ice. It's really hard to get ice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let it go when you're here.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
It's often just not an option.
Or 2 cubes.
Yeah, you can ask and you might get a few.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but just accept it and move on.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It tastes the same.
Yeah, but it is surprising. You're like, I mean, especially I think at fast food places, especially when you just get a giant paper cup of like fountain soda with no ice in it. That was the time that I thought, this is so weird, but it's still chilled. So who gets the point for this one?
Oh, the U.S. wins. I just want to drink some water. It doesn't need to be complicated.
Yeah, and I still like ice in my Coke.
I like a few cubes of ice.
Yeah.
Definitely the U.S.
Okay, next up is Apéro.
Nice job.
Oh, thank you. So this is like basically French happy hour. The cafe culture that you see everywhere. When people are done having coffee for the day, you switch to having drinks.
Yep.
Beer, Aperol spritz, cocktails, wine. Beer is like very common. This is when I see a lot of people have beer.
Cocktails are less common.
They are.
You see very few of those, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
Mixed drinks are common, but...
like spritzes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like sometime around between like 5 and 7, pretty close to like U.S. happy hour, people will just stop at a cafe and have a drink. Usually, or if you have people over for this too, you serve a very small snack. And when I say a very small snack, this cracked me up because in the U.S. how like happy hour, you'd be like half price appetizers, and you've got
it's
like
a full plate
potato skins and nachos coming. Oh no, it'll be like a little ramekin of peanuts, smoked nuts,
7 olives.
Yeah. It's just like the tiniest little thing to get you through to dinner, because the French have this idea that you should actually arrive at a meal hungry, which was another thing that I was like, I think my whole life I've been like, I'm hungry, I need a snack. And it didn't matter how close it was to the next meal. The French have a different approach than that. So these little olives, little nuts, it's even cute in the supermarket. They'll sell like little bags of little crackers and things that are just enough for like one serving with friends to put out with your apéro.
Yeah, makes it easy.
It does. So who gets this point?
We're giving this one to France. Apéro's a nice event.
It is.
It's different than happy hour, and there's a community around it.
It is, yeah.
It's definitely a precursor to the meal. Okay, up next, eating while walking or driving. Okay, so in the U.S., pretty common. You go in someplace, pick something up, walk out with it, eat it while you're walking. Go through a drive-thru, eat something while you're driving.
Let's just say this does not happen in France. You just don't see it.
Almost never.
Almost never. I would say the only exceptions are if you get a crêpe, maybe around lunchtime because you're, running late. There are Starbucks here, but I still very rarely see people actually walking around with Starbucks cups. People usually have their coffee there. There's just not like that to-go mentality it just doesn't exist.
Maybe only at the train stations?
Oh, yeah, I would say that's because people are commuting and your schedule's off.
Just don't see people walking around with food or drinks.
I wouldn't say I've ever felt judged, but you definitely kind of stand out as, I think, not French if you're walking around eating things other than like maybe waffles or crepes that you got at like while you're at a market or...
Yeah, I think it's a critical part of food culture to just take your time and sit down and enjoy it.
Yes, that's the difference.
You know, if it's time for lunch, then it means you have time to do that. If it's time for a drink or time to eat something, you have to set some time to just enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's like this idea of like, if you're just going to walk around and eat it, like what's the point? You're not going to enjoy it. We gave this one to France again, just because although there are times I miss walking around the city with coffee, I think it's like a nicer way to approach your food and your relationship with your food.
Yeah.
So
it was an adjustment.
Yeah.
But I
kind of like being peer pressured into not doing it, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Next.
This one's kind of related, which is fast food. There is still fast food here in France. Mostly you'll see McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, and there's a few Five Guys and exactly 2 Chipotles. We found both of them. I feel like in the US, fast food is usually like, it's the thing that you do because you didn't have time to do something else, right? Whereas the French, it's like still an event. I mean, Juliana's French friends, when it was her birthday, they were going out to McDonald's. Yeah. And this was like the thing they were doing everyone's excited about. Yeah. And they still usually sit down. So the inside of McDonald's here are much nicer. Oh my gosh. I've seen like leather banquettes and many of them are very different.
We were brought dessert at McDonald's, which was a shocking experience. It came around afterwards and just offered us a small kind of sweet snack to have once we were done.
It was like part of the
like,
ending of the meal. Yeah. I know, we were so confused. We were like, what? Yeah. So, and even if they take it away, drive through, it's usually because they're like taking it somewhere to sit down and eat it. Yeah. So again, it's just it's a different approach even to fast food. Even that feels more intentional.
Yeah, you're not trying to get in and out of there as quickly as possible.
Yeah. For us, it's most often when we have not somehow fit the French meal times into our day, and it's one of the only places that you can still get food in between those hours. Yeah. Okay, you reveal the points. This one was a hard one.
It was. There was a lot of debate here.
Yeah, and the reason is what we miss about U.S. fast food culture is the convenience.
I want food and I want it now.
Yeah, and they don't really have a lot of that here. So, and even like our local pizza place, it's one guy and he's got one oven. And sometimes you will call because you need a pizza.
I need pizza at 7. Oh, sorry.
He's like, that slot's already full.
Someone
Can I get you pizza at 9? You're like, oh man. Okay, so how do we award these points?
We actually gave the points to both sides.
Yeah.
Half a point to each.
Yeah.
It was just too hard. It's almost like apples and oranges. You've kind of got more of an event here in France. But the convenience is nice too in the U.S.
Yeah, we do miss that. So this next one is something that we didn't even know was a thing until we came here. It's called AOP. Is that what it's? Do you know what it stands for?
Yeah. Well, it's in French. AOP means like the protected, designated origin of a product.
Okay.
So it sets aside. There's rules. If something gets an AOP designation, they have to be following a certain procedure, certain ingredients to produce a certain product. So if you're buying AOP butter from a region, that all of that AOP butter from that region is made in the exact same manner. So you know kind of the product you're getting. It's kind of a seal of approval.
Like quality, of certain quality.
Quality and standards have been met.
We don't have really anything equivalent in the U.S.
I've never seen anything like that in the U.S.
And it's like for products all over France. So that's interesting. And the other thing along with that, which I think just goes along like that, like the French are proud of their food heritage and doing things in a traditional way. And that's part of what the AOP seal is represents. But the other thing is like where the food comes from. They're also very proud that they make a lot of their food here in France. And so when you go to the grocery store, it's amazing. Everything is labeled where it comes from. Even sometimes on restaurant menus, like where the meat comes from. When you're in the produce section, you'll notice that the most it'll have, where this is from
often
Spain.
Down to the city or region of the country.
Yes,
I've
this
seen
is the crazy thing.
Postal codes before on apples.
Yeah.
You know that this came from the postal code right next door.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible. That
it is.
It is the pride, I think, that they take in
Yeah.
knowing where the food came from exactly.
Yeah.
It's important.
And you'll be in like national chain grocery stores and see the village that potatoes or apples came from.
Yeah.
It's true. It's kind of crazy that way, but very cool.
Yeah.
Who got the point on this one?
Oh, France
Yeah,
did.
you guys
France
knew. You
did.
saw this coming, right? Yeah.
There was no hiding this one.
we don't do this really in the U.S.
It feels important.
It feels important.
It gives a special importance to each piece of food that you're getting.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. Next, this is a small one, but it's kind of a...
Oh, it's a big one. It's a big one. Okay, let's talk about butter. I love butter.
We buy AOP butter sometimes.
French butter is fantastic.
It is.
It's just
oh,
wonderful.
It's so good.
Little higher fat content. It's a little creamier. It's wonderful. But
get it for Thanksgiving.
What is the kicker here?
So the French only eat butter with their bread for breakfast. After that, the butter goes away.
There's no butter at lunch.
No butter at lunch.
There's no butter at dinner.
Nope. It's just bread. They still serve bread. Bread with every meal, right? The baguettes. We've talked about the baguettes before. But no butter.
Yeah.
And it makes us sad.
It's disappointing.
So we defy French standards at home, and we decided...
I still hope when I see the butter, when I see the bread coming out.
like, maybe there'll be butter.
There might be butter. No,
there's never
there's
butter.
Never butter.
No. So pretty soon Jason's going to start bringing it in his pocket. But we haven't gone to those lengths yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no butter after breakfast.
Okay, so you know who won this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Butter's nice. The U.S. wins.
The US
I want to have butter at lunch. I want to have butter at dinner.
We want all the butter.
I don't always need butter, but it's nice to have it.
It is. It's true.
Point for the U.S.
Yes, totally. The last one that we're going to finish on, long meals. And you may have actually, this is something that I think people hear about in France, is the 2-3 hour meals that what you've heard is correct. The kids stay at the table too. Which is amazing, but they're brought up from when they're young that this is just, part of sharing time with your family. Usually, lunch is usually 2 hours always if you're in a restaurant.
Yes.
I mean, the other day we only had an hour and 15 minutes to eat. I said, Jason, do you want to go to lunch? He was like, we don't have time. Yeah. Dinner is usually even longer. 3 hours is super common. And it's the same when you have people over or you go to people's houses. We have never left a French person's house from dinner before midnight.
Yeah.
Ever. Even when we were being hosted by two people in their 70s. And I thought when we moved here that it would feel like forever. Like, what am I going to do at the table for 4 hours?
Yeah.
This is nuts. And every time it just flies by. Like you eat in courses, you relax, you talk, you have wine. I love it.
It's nice. There's never any pressure to hurry up and finish.
Yes.
To move on, to clear the table. Are you done with your drink yet? Do you need anything else?
Never. As a matter of fact, you
just take your time and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, totally. It made me think of when you were saying that about there being no rush at the table, that usually you pay at the bar because they won't even bring you the check. Yeah. Like they don't want you to feel pressured or hurried to leave. And I've actually heard Americans frustrated with that before. Like, why are they not bringing the check? And that's actually another cultural difference. You probably need to get up and go to the bar to pay the check. If you are in tourist places, they will bring it to you. But if you're in a real French, like bistro, brasserie, restaurant, other than high-end places, often you have to get up.
Don't be afraid to ask too.
Oh,
if you find yourself at a restaurant and you want to leave, just ask for the check. They won't bring it to you.
Right.
So you need to ask.
But it's cultural. It's because they're not rushing you.
They don't want you to feel pressured.
Right. Yeah. So who got the point for this one?
France did.
Yeah.
We like the long meals. We like taking our time. We like enjoying the event of whatever the meal is.
Yeah. Which, again, has been a little bit of an adjustment, but one that we were looking forward to when we moved here, and it's proved to be a highlight of French culture and the French lifestyle for sure. Yep. Okay. So we're at the end, and
the challenge is done.
Have you been keeping track?
Yeah. You've been.
Who won?
Who won?
France.
France did. It was close. It was close.
Yeah. Sort of. That's our list. We had fun making this because this is such a highlight of our lifestyle in France. And we would love to know from you if you have visited France, if you've lived here. Tell us in the comments, what did we miss? What did you notice?
Yeah, would you rank them differently?
Oh, yeah. We'd love to know because these are all just our opinions and how they have felt for us. We like to talk about food, so feel free to drop some thoughts, some of your thoughts down below. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
A bientôt.
See you soon.